Hello everyone. Today we are going to see a very important and a vast topic in laboratory medicine, that is quality control. Quality control in clinical laboratory. I will cover this topic in brief. I will cover the important aspects. First, the specific learning objectives, which are you should be able to define quality control, enumerate different quality control variables or parameters, enumerate pre-analytical variables, enumerate analytical variables, define different quality control programs, and name different quality control charts. So let us begin. First, what is quality? Now, quality is an individual concept, and the standards of quality is different for different individual, and quality is something which definitely creates an impression. So quality gives us a sense of trust, faith, something which is reliable, something which does not fail. It gives us a sense of satisfaction, peace of mind. Quality comes with guarantee which can be replaced, and quality is also associated with authority. Okay, if you're selling a quality product, you can vouch for it, and definitely quality comes at a price. So these are the various ways in which you can describe quality. Next, how do we assess quality? You can assess quality individually if you are knowledgeable about that particular product or the topic. If you have studied, you can analyze and you can understand the quality. Or you can come to know about the quality of various things through your family and friends, okay, where they tell you about certain things which are quality product and something which is not. Then there are various certification marks in India which puts a stamp of quality. Okay. For example, the ISI quality mark, okay, the Government of India stamp. So these stamps, these quality accreditations or quality certification, it tells us that the particular product has undergone quality test and is of a particular quality. So it makes us believe, it helps us to choose our product. Then coming to the medical sector, where quality is represented by NABH, National Accreditation Board for Hospitals, or in case of lab, it is NABL, National Accreditation Board for Laboratories, okay, or Joint Commission, or NAC, ISO. So all these are accreditation bodies which gives various quality certificates and tells us that this is a quality hospital where you can get yourself treated, or this is a quality lab where you can get yourself tested. So coming to quality control in clinical laboratory. The quality in clinical laboratory means it is fit for the purpose. Fit for the purpose of diagnosis of patients, fit for the purpose of patient management. It is defined as it is a statistical process used to monitor and evaluate the analytical process that produces patient's result. Okay. So the definition includes it's a statistical process. Okay, we are not going to go into details of the statistics. Okay, but the important thing is that the quality control in laboratory is done to evaluate the analytical process. That means the machines are evaluated, the machines which perform the analysis of various tests. So the quality control is focused on those machines which are analyzing the parameters. Okay. And it can also be explained by degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfill requirements. Okay, for example, if you're buying a phone, what are your requirements? Your requirements might be right from the screen size. You want a 5-inch screen size, a good battery backup, a good high definition camera which can take 4K videos, a good 6 GB or 8 GB RAM, processor, speed. So those are your requirements. And then you select certain phones based on your requirements. Similarly, there are requirements from the labs also. So what are those requirements? test requisition. Does the lab do these tests which I require? Are the machines capable of achieving the performance which I want? When will I get the test? So these are the requirements, and we judge a lab on the basis of our requirements. How well does a lab performs? In other words, is the lab fit for the purpose of my requirement, or is there quality in the lab? So this is what quality control is all about. Okay, the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics of the lab which fulfills the requirements of the user. Let us go into the basics of quality control. Now, what is control material? Control material is a material which contains known values of multiple parameters and have physical and chemical properties similar to serum. In other words, control material is basically a sample which contains multiple parameters like urea, glucose, uric acid, sodium, potassium, chloride. Okay, so it contains multiple biochemical parameters in that same sample, and that sample is similar to serum. The physical and chemical properties are similar to serum. Okay, it is not serum, but it is similar to serum. Okay, the only advantage is what values are there, what values of the parameters are there, those values are known to us. Okay, so it's basically a sample which contains known values of multiple parameters. Coming to accuracy. Accuracy is how close to the correct value. Okay. Now let us assume I have a sample which has the blood sugar level of that particular sample is 100 milligram percent. Okay, let us assume hypothetically I have a sample in which the blood sugar is of 100 milligram percent. And I give this sample to lab A and I ask them to test for blood glucose. The lab reports as 95 milligram per deciliter. I give the same sample to lab B and ask them to give me a blood sugar report. The lab B gives me a value of 99 milligram per deciliter. Which lab is more accurate? Obviously lab B, okay, because it has reported as 99 and the correct value is 100, which I know. So accuracy is how close the value is reported to the correct value. That is accuracy. What is precision? Precision is reproducibility, ability to give the same value. Now again, the same sample, the same sugar sample, I gave to the same lab A, and I asked them, please repeat the same test, blood sugar. The lab A again gives me the same value, which is 95 milligram per deciliter, and lab B gives me a value of 110 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so lab A, the first reading which was 95, second reading also is 95 milligram per deciliter, whereas lab B, the first reading which was 99, second reading is 110 milligram per deciliter. So lab A is more precise. That means on repeat testing, it gives a value near to the original value. Okay, whereas the lab B is not precise. Okay, so that is the meaning of precision and accuracy. Now coming to test sensitivity, that is ability of a test to quantify even minute amount of target substances in the sample. Okay. So let us take the example of TSH test, thyroid stimulating hormone test. The normal level of serum TSH is 0.5 to 6.5 international unit per ml. Okay, so in case of, let's say in case of hyperthyroidism, okay, when the thyroid hormones are high, the TSH values decreases. Okay, it decreases to even less than 0.5. It becomes 0.1. Okay, sometimes even less than that. So if I give a sample of a patient of hyperthyroid to one lab, okay, so the lab will give me a report of less than 0.5, because the machine which is there in the lab is not able to test for TSH less than 0.5 levels. That is its testing limit. Whereas the other lab gives me a report of 0.1. Okay, so the second lab which is able to quantify even a minute amount, that means that is having a more sensitive test. So that is test sensitivity, that is able to identify even minute amounts of target substance. Then coming to the pre-analytical variables. Pre-analytical means pre-analysis. That means before you are putting the sample in the machine. Okay, that is pre-analysis or pre-analytical variables. Okay. Now these are very important variables which can affect patient's results. So we need to be careful. So what are these pre-analytical variables? Right from test requested. Okay. Now if a patient comes to you, comes to your lab and asks for lipid profile, okay, in the afternoon after having lunch, is it right to do lipid profile? No, because the values will be incorrect. Lipid profile is done on a fasting state. Okay, so that is why whatever report will come, that will be an incorrect value, and if diagnosis and treatment is based on that, it will lead to wrong diagnosis and treatment. So here again you see it has got nothing to do with machine analyzing the test. Okay, just because wrong test was done at the wrong time gave a wrong report. So these are pre-analytical variables like test requested. Okay, you should know what test requires what or at what time it has to be done. Then patient ID. Okay. Second important pre-analytical variable is patient ID. Now imagine yourself being an intern. Okay, you are posted in some medicine ward, and the resident asks you, or the faculty asks you, go and take a blood sugar sample from a patient named Abhijit on ward 3. Okay, so you go to ward 3 and you take a sample from Abhijit. Now there might be two Abhijits there, Abhijit Pratap, Abhijit Singh. Which patient was the sample you should have taken? You do not know. So there again, patient ID, if you do not have the full name, it can lead to wrong report, wrong diagnosis. Okay. Another important pre-analytical variable is turnaround time. Okay, how fast the report comes to the patient. Okay, for example, CSF reports. Okay, CSF analysis is very urgent. Okay, as soon as you receive the sample, the testing has to be done. Okay, if the reports are not generated on time, then if the test is not done on time, then it gives a wrong report. So again, turnaround time is another important pre-analytical variable. Okay. Then lab entries. Okay, transcriptional errors. Let us say a patient, there is a name of the patient is, you have entered the name as Sugandha, but actually the patient's name is Sunanda. So a transcriptional error will lead to a wrong report. Okay, something again which is very, very common. Then patient preparation. Patient preparation also is an important pre-analytical variable. Okay. Suppose you are taking a blood sample, you are taking any sample. Let's say you are taking estimation of urea from a patient who is in the ward. Okay. And you take the sample from the same arm on where the IV fluids are going. So again, that will lead to dilution of sample and a wrong report. Okay, so patient preparation is again an important cause of pre-analytical variable. Specimen collection is another pre-analytical variable. So specimen collection is if you want to test for blood sugar. So if you want to test for blood sugar, you have to take in a fluoride bulb or a fluoride valve. Okay, or a grey color vacutainer. So instead of that, you take the sample in an EDTA vial or a red vacutainer, you will get a wrong report. Okay, so again, specimen collection is very important. Specimen sample processing. is another important pre-analytical variable. If the samples are not processed properly, if the samples, there is hemolysis of sample, again that will lead to a wrong report. And then you have untrained staff, untrained personals who are doing the test, who are handling the samples. Okay, again, if you have untrained samples, untrained personals, that will again lead to wrong report. So the important thing is that there are various pre-analytical variables that we have just discussed. Each of these pre-analytical variables are capable of generating a wrong report. Okay. And the important thing is that the machine is not responsible for this. The machine might be absolutely okay. Okay. But because there is a pre-analytical variable at fault, a wrong report is dispatched. Okay, so it is a very, very important thing to know what are the pre-analytical variables. Then coming to the analytical variables. Analytical variables are basically the machines which perform the test. Okay. Now what are these variables? These include controls, reagents, various consumables. Okay, if these consumables are not kept at proper temperature, okay, not refrigerated from time to time, okay, if they are expired or if they lose their stability, okay, then obviously the machine will analyze wrongly and you will get a wrong report. If the method of analysis is not performed properly, okay, if the standard operating procedures are not followed, okay, again it will lead to wrong analysis. Okay, for example, if you are running the controls on the machine and you keep the control on outside for a very long time, okay, so that will lead to again machine giving a wrong report. Then coming to post analytical variables, that means after the analysis has done, okay, the machine has performed the test. Okay, so what are included in these? If there is a report mismatch, okay, let us assume, okay, you have given a hemoglobin report of 5 gram% in the morning and by night you give a report of normal report, a 12 gram%. That is again unacceptable. It's a wrong report because you have not previously mismatched with the previous report, or it might be a report mismatch. Okay, so that is a wrong report. A report which is not legible, you cannot understand what reporting is done. The doctor is not able to read the test value, or he misreads it. Okay, there is a transcriptional error. A report if it is delayed, okay, or if there is an emergency sample, emergency test has been done, but you have not informed the consulting physician. Okay, so all these come under post analytical variables. Then coming to error or bias. Bias basically means error. So error is what? If there's a deviation from target value, that is error. Okay, for example, you have blood sugar value of 100 milligram% and one lab reports it as 110 milligram%, which is wrong. So that is a error or a bias. Now this error can be a random error or a systematic error. Random error is which occurs without any obvious cause. Okay, and systematic error is which occurs persistently and due to various causes, which involves the consumables, techniques, environment, etc. Okay, let us take the example of blood sugar estimation again. We have the same sample whose blood sugar is 100 milligram%. Okay. I give it to a lab. The lab tests it and reports it as, let's say, 95 milligram%. Okay, which is slightly less than the target value. Okay, so I asked the lab to, can you please test the sample again? The second time the lab test, okay, the value comes at 98, which is acceptable, is near to the target value. So the 95 was a random error. The third time I asked the same lab to do the test thrice. Again, the lab third time reports it as 98. So the 95 which the lab reported in the first time, that was a random error. Okay. Now if the same lab gives me three reports which is near to the same value, let's say 94, 95, 93 of the sugar value, that is a systematic error. That means some error which is there is something which is causing low values to come. So that is a systematic error, that is persistent error. Random error occurs randomly without any obvious cause and it automatically gets corrected. Okay, so that is the difference between a random error and a systematic error. Now let's see what accuracy and precision is. Okay, so the first, this is a, here in the center you have, this is the target value, okay, and these black dots are the various reports which have been generated. So here we have one report which is in the target value, okay, other reports are here and there, okay, outside. So this is an example of low accuracy because only one managed to get the correct value, and low precision because again repeating the test gives us different values and not same value. Okay. Coming here, this is, you have multiple tests, okay, which are near the target value. So it is fairly accurate, but again the precision is low. Okay, it is not reproducing the same result. One here, it is all here and there. Coming to the third one, okay, here it is low accuracy and high precision. You see, this is the target value. None of the reporting is near the target value, so definitely it is low accuracy. However, all the reportings are at one particular point, at one particular value or near this value. So this is high precision and this is low accuracy. Okay, so this is low precision. Here you can see the reported values are throughout the graph. Okay, here it is located at one point. So precision is high, here precision is low. Okay. Now coming to the fourth one, here you have all the values in the target value. Okay, all the reported values come in the target range. So this is an example of high accuracy and high precision. High accuracy, why? Because all the reported values are in the target range, and high precision because again they're able to reproduce the same values again and again. So this is high precision and high accuracy, something which a lab tries to achieve. Now coming to the principles of quality control. Principles of quality control in clinical laboratory is based on Westgard rules, okay, which is a gold standard rule, Westgard rule, which is followed everywhere. So what are these Westgard rules? We'll see. There are mainly 6 Westgard rules which determine the analytical performance of the machine and fulfills the requirement of quality control in clinical laboratory. Now if you look at the definition which we saw of quality control, it's a statistical process which monitors the analytical capability of the machine. So all the quality control which we're dealing with quality of the machine only. And Westgard rules also test the various analytical performance of the machine. Okay. So what are these rules? Rules 1 2s, 1 3s, 2 2s, range 4s, rule 4s, and rule 10x. Okay, these are various. There are 6 rules. Okay, let us look at these rules one by one. So coming to the first Westgard rule, that is rule 1 2s. Before that, this graph is a Levy-Jennings graph. Okay, now this graph it has mean at the center, 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviation, 3 standard deviation on the positive side, and 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviation, and 3 standard deviation on the negative side. Okay, so how do we get this mean? Okay, we talked about controls. What are controls? Control materials or control samples has known quantity of various parameters. Okay, let us assume it has glucose values are also there. So we will run those test controls every day, and we will find out a mean. Let us see, we assume we run for 20 days. Okay, and then we find out the mean value from 20 values that we get. We'll find out the mean value. Okay, and with the help of software we'll find out the standard deviation. So our graph is set for glucose. For glucose we'll get the mean value of glucose, we'll get the standard deviations 1, 2s, 3s, minus 1, minus 2s, minus 3s. So our graph is now set. Now we have to run the controls on daily basis. Okay, so when we run the control on run first day, a value came on the mean. Second day it came on 1, 2s. Third day again it came on the mean. Fourth day the value came on plus 2s. That means let us assume the value is, for hypothetical case, the mean of blood sugar in the control is, blood glucose is 100 milligrams, okay, per deciliter. Plus 2s, let us assume is 110. Okay, so the value of control is definitely more than 110. Okay, might be 111, 112. Okay, which is an outlier. So the control values have come outside this plus 2s. So 1 2s range, rule 1 2s means is when a single control value is outside 2 standard deviation. A 2 standard deviation, okay, here the control value is outside 2 standard deviation. Okay, so that is violation of rule 1 2s. Now it can occur on both sides. It can occur on plus 2s, whereas it can occur on minus 2s, this side also. Now this is a warning sign. Okay, this, if the controls violate this rule, it does not mean that the test is wrong. It is a warning sign. It might indicate a random error or it might indicate a systematic error. Okay, we'll have to test further, that we'll see. So in this case the patient's reports can be generated in case of if only 1 2s is crossed. Now rule 1 3s. Now here again you see these are on day 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, the values are here within 2s. Okay, and on the 6th day the value goes plus 3s. It is definitely more than 1 2s. Okay, so our limit was till 2s. Here rule 1 3s, what it says is when a single control value is obtained outside 3s, 3 standard deviation. So here the control value has come at 3s or outside 3 standard deviation. Okay, it can come here also, it can come on this side also. Okay, opposite side of the mean. If the control value for any parameter comes at 3s, plus 3s or minus 3s, it is unacceptable. Okay, it is an unacceptable error. That means you cannot run patients' samples. For example, if we are testing on the control we have run for glucose parameter and the control value comes here plus 3s, that means I cannot run glucose for patient's sample. I cannot test glucose on patient's samples. That means there is some error, and if I test glucose for patient sample, I will give out a wrong report. Okay, so that is why we do not report. This again, it might be a random error or it might be a systematic error. Okay, so we looked at rule 1 2s. Okay, now this is 1 3s. Coming to 2 2s. 2 2s is when 2 consecutive control readings are outside 2 standard deviation on 2 different runs. Okay, now a run on day 4 has come as plus 2s. Now I told you if there is only one outlier, this is acceptable. But next run again I do on day 5, the control again has come as at plus 2. Now this becomes 2 2s. There are 2 outliers at more than 2 standard deviations. Okay, on 2 different runs. So this becomes a rule violation of 2 2s. Okay, when 2 consecutive control readings are outside 2 standard deviation on 2 different runs. So what do we do? Again, this can occur on both sides of the mean. Okay, it can occur on this side of the mean and it can occur on this side of the mean also. This is again an unacceptable error and we cannot report patient's sample. Okay, for example, if control for we have run for glucose, okay, blood sugar, and the blood glucose levels on run 4 or day 4 comes as plus 2s, okay, and we have reported that because one it's a warning sign. On second run again, next day again it comes over here, so here we cannot do reporting today. Okay, that means there is a systematic error. Okay, now what is systematic error? Okay, we talked about systematic error is an error which is persistent. So here the error occurred and the error has persisted over here. That cause of error might be because of consumables, because of environment, okay, machine, that we have to find out. Okay, but rule 2s, if it is violated, that indicates a error, systematic error, and there is no reporting of patient's sample. Now range 4s. Now this rule is when the difference between the values obtained of two controls run simultaneously is minimum 4 standard deviation. Now for range 4s, you require two controls. Okay, level 1 control, level 2 control. Okay, level 1 control and level 2 controls, the concept of level 1 and level 2 controls are, now again let us assume, okay, for blood glucose, so level 1 will have blood glucose at low levels. Okay, let us assume 50 milligram per deciliter. So the control level 1 glucose control has a value of 50 milligram deciliter. Level 2 is a high control. Okay, assumed to be a high control. So here the blood glucose level will be, let's say, 200 milligram per deciliter. Now why do we have two levels? So at the level 1, which has low levels of glucose, 50 milligram per deciliter, that means if the patient's blood glucose is on the lower side and the control is okay, that means the machine is reporting blood sugar in the right way, the lower levels. Okay, that means low levels of blood sugar machine is reporting correctly. Similarly, if the high level is okay, if they run the controls of high level controls, here the blood sugar level is let's say 200 milligram percent and the controls are okay, that means the machine is reporting high levels of blood glucose also in as par with quality. Okay, so we have different levels of controls only to test the testing capability of machine over a range, at low range also, at higher end also. Okay, so that is why we have double level controls, or sometimes we have tri-level controls. Okay, so now range 4s, you require two controls to be run simultaneously. Here on third run, okay, two controls are run simultaneously. Now if you look at previous one, here you have only one control which is running on each day. Okay, here also day 4, day 5. Now this control, on one particular day, two controls are run. Okay, now if you find that the difference between two controls is 4SD, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 standard deviation difference is there between the two controls run simultaneously, then this is a range 4s violation. It's a violation of rule range 4s. This is again an unacceptable error and no reporting for that particular analyte is to be done. This indicates a random error. The rule 4s. Here is when 4 consecutive control readings are outside one standard deviation on 4 different runs. Okay, so here you are seeing one control on 4 consecutive readings have come more than one standard deviation outside. Okay, again it can occur on both sides. It can occur on this side of the mean and it can occur on this side of the mean. If there are 4 values here outside 1s, that indicates a violation of rule 4.1s. This is also unacceptable and it indicates a systematic run, a systematic error. Okay, that means there is some problem with the machine. Okay, problem with the consumables, problem with the method, or problem with some machine. Okay, we'll have to find out and solve the problem. So this again indicates a systematic error. Okay, rule 4.1s. Now rule 10x. The 10x is when 10 consecutive control readings are on one side of the mean. Okay, here it is talking only on one side of the mean. Okay, now this is the mean. If we have 10 consecutive readings on one side of the mean, it is rule 10x violation. Okay, ideally the controls, if it is on this side, then let's say day 1 it is here, day 2 is here, day 3 should come this side, on cross this side of the mean, or it should keep crossing on both sides of the mean. That is an ideal control run. Okay, if that does not happen, if there are 10 consecutive readings on one side of the mean, it is a violation of rule 10x. Okay, it can occur on this side of the mean or it can occur on this side of the mean. It is also an unacceptable error and no reporting of patient sample is to be done. Okay, this also indicates a systematic error. Now what is acceptance of run? Okay, so we see these combination of Westgard rules which we have seen. Okay, how do we go about it? How do we accept a run? So first we run the control. Okay, whether we see 1 2s has crossed or not. Okay, if 1 2s is there is no if 1 2s is not crossed, okay, that means it is within 1 2s. That means the control is in control and we can accept the run. Okay, if 1 2s is crossed, then we see 1 3s is crossed or not. Okay, it has crossed 1 2s. Okay, now next we see whether outside 1 2s it has crossed 1 3s. If it has crossed 1 3s, it is out of control and we reject the run. Okay, as we have seen. It has not. If it has not crossed 1 3s, then we see whether 2 2s has been crossed or not. We will see the previous control, previous day's control. Previous day, was it also was it also crossed 2s? Okay, if yes, we will reject. It is out of control and we will reject the run. If 2 2s is not crossed, then we will see range 4s is crossed or not. Okay, whether we have run, when we run 2 controls, the other control which we have run, level 2, we will see if 4 standard deviation bit is crossed or not between these 2 control levels. If it is crossed, it is out of control and we reject the run. If no, then we move to the next rule, that is 4.1s. Okay, we'll see if the previous 3 readings have crossed 1s or not. Okay, if it is crossed, then we reject the run. If no, then we see the next rule, that is rule 10x. We will see the previous 9 readings. Okay, this is the 10th one. If the previous 9 readings have crossed or on one side of the mean or not. If it is yes, we will reject the run. If no, then we will accept the run. So you see 1 2s if it is crossed. Okay, if 1 2s is crossed and rest all it is not crossed, you still accept the run. So that is why I told you 1 2s is a warning sign. It does not indicate you have to reject the run. It's a warning sign. Okay, so this is how the run control is accepted. Once you do this chart, okay, once we have run the controls and we go through the Westgard rules, okay, and if the run is accepted, that means the machine is following quality control norms. The analysis of machine is at par or is it of quality. Okay, so this is how we test the analytical part of the machine, whether it is testing properly or not. For every parameter we do. I give you the example of glucose. Similarly, quality controls are run for each and every biochemical parameter, okay, even metallurgical parameters. Now the caution is Westgard rules only assess the analytical variables. Okay, as you have seen, we are testing the quality of machine only, whether the machine is doing its part properly or not. We are not looking into pre-analytical and post-analytical variables, okay, which are very common, and it's a very common source of error. In fact, it forms the major cause of a wrongly dispatched report from a lab. Okay, why? Because pre-analytical and post-analytical variables, we are not following any quality checks. Okay, we are looking for only quality checks in the analytical part. Now, what are the applications and significance of quality control in clinical laboratory? Okay, if a lab is performing quality control, it gives a reliable and reproducible reports. Okay. Now, if you get accreditations by various accreditation bodies like National Accreditation Board for Laboratories, ISO, and your lab gets a mark of quality, and your lab can be trusted. The lab can be trusted by doctors, it can be trusted by patients, and it leads to better patient management. Obviously, if the lab is generating good quality reports, correct reports, it leads to better patient management. Okay. Now, to generate or to have quality in lab, you can have quality in lab only if you develop a standard operating procedure and work ethics. Okay, so if you're concerned about concerned about lab quality, it will also lead to development of a standard operating procedure and work ethics. Then only you can give quality. And also, if you're concerned about quality, you will implement the contracts. You will implement the various maintenance contracts of machines, like annual maintenance or comprehensive maintenance. Okay, so you will get your machines checked, service maintenance done regularly, because these are the basic applications and significance of quality control in lab. But different quality control programs are there. Okay, we talked about quality control. Okay, now there are different types of quality control programs. One is internal quality control and the other is external quality control. What is internal quality control? Now, internal quality control basically is daily run of controls. Okay, known values. These controls are having known values done in the lab to check quality of tests done via the Westgard rules, something which we have just seen. Okay, so all the controls which talked about, I was referring to internal quality control program. Okay, so where you daily run control values and you see whether they follow the Westgard rules or not. Now the second is external quality control program, which is also known as EQA, or external quality control assurance. Okay, it is also known as proficiency testing. Now this external quality control program is program run by external agencies. Okay, like Bio-Rad, Randex, CMC Vellore. These are institutions, external institutions which run this control program, quality control program. So basically, other institutions are checking the quality of your lab. How will they check? They will give you a sample. Okay, they will give you a sample, a control sample. Okay, which the value of which you do not know. Okay, for example, you have received a control value and it also contains all the parameters from glucose, urea, create, everything. Now, how much value of glucose is there, you do not know. In your daily controls which you run, you know the values of control. Here, you do not know the values of controls. Okay, so they will give you the sample, you will run the sample, and whatever value of glucose you get, okay, that you will send the values to these agencies. Now these agencies will take your values, okay, compare your performance with other labs using similar machines, similar methods, and will give you your quality report. Okay, so this is again a very good program which tells you how accurate your lab is. Okay, so external quality program, or EQA, is a monthly run of controls, and the program in the lab is the lab is compared with other labs which are registered in the program. Okay, you have thousands of labs which are registered with external quality control programs. Okay, so each lab is compared with that particular peer group, and the quality report is generated. Okay, so this test again the quality. Now, best quality report from clinical laboratory. Okay, so which is the best quality report which can come from a clinical laboratory? So we have seen a lab which performs quality control daily, that is internal quality control, and participates in quality programs, that is external quality programs, provides best and most reliable report. Is it true? Well, in my opinion, the answer is no. Why? Because when you talk about quality control, we are talking about quality of only the analysis part. Okay, I'm repeating this again and again. We are testing, or we are putting a stamp of quality only on the analytical variables, whether the machine is working fine or not. Okay, the right report is, when the right report is delivered to the right person at the right time. And what is the right report, or the best report? Is a lab which performs quality control plus does clinical correlation. So a best report is a report which has quality control as well as clinical correlation. Okay. Now assume that there is one lab. Okay, let us assume you are a doctor, you are a treating physician, and you have given testing for glucose, or let's say hemoglobin, to my lab. Okay, and I have tested and I have given the report as 12 gram percent hemoglobin. Okay, you look at the report and you say it is impossible to have this report as the hemoglobin as 12, because the patient is clinically pallor. The patient is clinically, I can see the patient is anemic. So if you get that report, so obviously you are not going to trust my lab, irrespective of whatever quality control and whatever quality certificates I have. So that is the normal thing. We're not saying that anyone is wrong. Okay, but that is what is correct. So where did I go wrong? Okay, because I'll have to see. Best is if the lab who is testing also clinically correlates the patient's report, then the best report is, or the best quality of lab is, that is the best quality. Okay, so that is why it is very important to have a doctor in the lab who does quality control and also analyzes or correlates with patient's findings. Okay, to summarize, what is quality? Okay, again, quality is an individual concept. Okay, quality in clinical laboratory is a statistical process which analyzes and monitors the analytical process of the machine. Talked about various pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical variables. Okay, pre-analytical variables are very important variables. Okay, which we should take into account right from the test, which is requested to patient ID, turnaround time, transcriptional errors, patient preparation, sample processing. Okay, these are very, very important variables because they account for lot of errors or a wrong report. Then talked about analytical variables, okay, which involves the consumables, the machines, and post-analytical variables, which again involves the report mismatch, previous matching of the reports, okay, not legible reports, transcriptional errors. Then talked about principles of quality in laboratory. So the principles of quality in laboratory is basically by the Westgard rules. Okay, so Westgard rules, there are 6 Westgard rules. Okay, so those 6 Westgard rules are very important. Okay, you should know those 6 Westgard rules and applications of quality in laboratory. Okay, that we have already seen. So this finishes the LD on quality control in laboratory, clinical laboratory. this is brief of what quality is. Okay, it's a very vast topic. Now for your theory, you also get a 10-mark question on quality control, and the other is that you with these charts you will have quality control charts. Okay, these charts of will be of Westgard rules, violation of Westgard rules. So you should know these Westgard rules, okay, and you should be able to interpret the violation of Westgard rules. Okay, so thank you very much.